All right, all right.
Oh, it's a lot of fun.
We have fun. We have fun. All right, folks. Welcome back to the hour, the 1 hour that we look forward to in the month. And unfortunately, we had to push it from Friday to Monday due to holidays. And my apologies, but we could not miss this. The momentum has to keep going, and so we had to pick up the Monday as opposed to the last Friday. But this is Climb to Your Prime with Dr. Heim, and we are live on YouTube and Instagram. For those of you who want to join us, you can dial the number that's on the ticker, as well as you can literally request to be on with us, and we'll have you on as long as we keep it, clean, right? Doctor, right? What do you think? I mean, as long as they respect the environment, right?
Fully in agreement, Hurricane. Fully in agreement.
And we touch on everything, so it's all
Oh
good.
yeah.
But no worries there. But just come in, and just like you would do on TikTok on another platform, you can come in here and let's talk. Dr. Heim is always ready to answer questions. This is a live Q&A. And a lot of good stuff in here. So I tell you, it's funny, Doctor. Just as a joke. I mean, it's not a joke; it's real. I mean, I was driving earlier, and I was literally listening to the last show, and it's funny because it was just too much stuff that I was just getting engaged with it, and I was happy, and I was just like, I got pumped for this one too. So, all right. Well, so in the interest of time, we're gonna get started with some questions. And by the way, you in Sydney, right? Or you're out of?
Okay, so we're in Queensland at the moment, so we're a bit northerly, and we move around a little bit because we've got our finger in a few pies in a few different states.
Well, listen, you're busy, and the work you do is great. And I know you help people around. You do different clinics. You go to different parts. You go to Tasmania. You do Europe. I mean, you're all over the place. You do research, and listen, I value your time, and I know that this hour is really a wealth of knowledge and tips for all our audiences. And I think everybody watching, listening now or later, or listening on the radio, you will have fun with this. So, and just as just a quick announcement. I mean, we're all over now. Most of the radio platforms and or I guess apps that are out there that you can listen radios, world radios. You can find iHealth Radio there, and you can listen there as well. And we're revamping our radio as well on the Android stuff. So that's going to happen very soon. And yeah, I mean, we're all over the place. So we build in more and more. So just help us out. Come on and send us your questions, and we're gonna have some fun. And this is your time. This is your how you call it, doctor. This is time for mental health, right? So it's an important piece of our life. All right, doctor. First question. Um, I'm gonna put it on the screen. It's yeah, this one is easy. So one line. Why are human emotions so complex, and what drives them? Are they innate, chemical in nature, or simply acquired by the environment? James, Ontario.
Okay, that's a great question, James. And basically, the question is, what are our emotions? And it actually helps when we look into ourselves and see what's going on up here, that we see that there are things going on that we can call thoughts, and there are things that are going on that we can call emotions. And I actually find this a useful division. Now, the bottom line is thoughts are very complex. We don't know the origins of it, but we know a bit more about emotions, because emotions are actually very connected to our body. Our emotions are there for our survival, as everything actually is. But what it is it's a feeling, a sensation that comes to you in a rush, sometimes more slowly, but it is something that, rather than you having control over, it is something that, if we're not careful, can have control over us. But all emotions teach us to handle our environment. If we're angry with something, then probably something has happened that is hurtful or unjust. If we are fearful about something, then we're confronted with something that we need to be cautious about and just think about before we move forward in. If we're happy or joyful, then that emotion tells us that we are doing something that's good for our survival. Now, I don't want to paint emotions out as though they're just from their body or they're just chemicals, but they are mediated by chemicals in the brain. That's how we experience it. But the link between brain chemicals, which are physical, objective, and could theoretically be measured, and our sensation of things like happiness, joy, anger, sadness, or fear, that link science does not understand yet, because we do not understand fully the link between the mind and the brain, subjective and objective. But James, when you feel emotions, the way to handle them is to firstly ask yourself the question, what am I feeling right now? Because emotions, as I said, can overwhelm you. And without asking that question, a lot of people can do things in their anger and in their fear that they don't actually want to do. So when you ask yourself that question, what am I feeling right now? What is the emotion that I am experiencing? You are linking an emotion with a feeling. And when you put those together, you give yourself choice in how to act. So that's a bit of a starting point, Hurricane, to a very complex and very difficult area.
Well, it is indeed. I mean, I think we live our lives, based on emotions. I mean, everybody is emotional. Everything around us triggers
Yeah.
some sort of an emotion, right?
Yes.
From everything. I mean, with your food, you have emotions. With people, you have emotions. You get triggered by the environment. You have emotions. I mean, you see something, it can get you kind of excited or
Yes.
otherwise. I mean, so it's just amazing that that's part of who we are. I think as humans. I mean, so again, I guess it's innate. I mean, part of that, right?
It
It's not.
is.
Yeah.
It is. I'm sorry, Hurricane, but I suppose one thing that I want to emphasize is that it's not all that we are. We feel our emotions really strongly, but we are not our emotions. Okay. We are not our thoughts. We are not our emotions. We're that part of us that goes, what am I experiencing right now? Because when you're angry, that doesn't mean that you are an angry person. That means that you happen to be experiencing anger at that particular time. And that's why that question is important. What am I experiencing right now? Because then that part of you that has choice can actually decide what to do with the anger. The trouble is that good emotions feel good and bad emotions feel bad, and our brain likes feeling good and it doesn't like feeling bad. So we look for ways to get to the good. But the secret is to stand outside both negative and positive emotions, to be somebody that has choice.
Well, so Doc, we are in control. I mean, we are at the helm, right? I mean, at the end of
Yeah.
the day, we're the ones who can choose, as you said, we have a choice to make, whatever it is out of these emotions. And I mean, listen, we talk about this all the time. I like the positive outlook of life, right? And but sometimes what we see, I mean, we all got angry at a point of our lives, right? I mean, something happened, triggered us, and we really kind of lost it.
Yes.
We lose our cool, as we say, right? And it's not really what we want. Sometimes you find yourself like in a debate or an argument or angry, and it's not you, but somehow you're triggered and pushed
Yes.
towards that, and vice
Yes.
versa. Sometimes you watch I don't know, a movie, and you like start tearing up. I mean, someone's like, "Whoa, you guys cry?" Yeah, guys cry too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
everybody, right? Everybody watching, guys and gals. I mean, you get a nice little emotion, something triggers something in you, and you
Yeah.
start doing that. Like I don't know what you said, Doc. It's not us. I mean, we are uh, the being that
Yes.
has something attached to these emotions, right? So
Yes.
it's just fascinating, man.
Okay, okay, but it's actually really important because we're going to go into the brain to describe just what you happened there, just how what you said happens. Okay, and anger is a bit more difficult, but I'm going to use fear because fear makes a lot more sense. So, in Myanmar, in Asia, they have just experienced a really large, horrific earthquake.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people in situations will have experienced fear in being in a situation, and that fear would have driven them to start running somewhere or to start doing things before they even thought about it. And the whole idea about that emotion, fear, is to keep you alive, it's to help you survive. So, this is how this happens in the brain. You've got an attention center in your brainstem called your reticular activating system, which will watch out for things happening in the environment. And if a building is coming down close to you, The feeling of fear runs from your brainstem, the reticular activating system, up to your amygdala, which is right near the center of your brain. And you feel the emotion of fear before you think about it. Now, here's the thing. In your fear, you will normally do things that is good for your survival, okay? But the signal that goes to your frontal cortex that gives you choice, what am I going to do now that I'm fearful? That actually comes a couple of seconds after your amygdala feels it. So they're the crucial seconds. And in fear, sometimes you don't have those seconds, because if a building's coming down and you have to run, your amygdala will make you run without you thinking about it. But let's get back to anger, because that's the problem one. When you notice that you feel anger, it's the same basic process. Something has happened to hurt you or is unjust. And you can actually do something or behave in a way that's not actually going to be good for you or other people in that moment. So if you can say, okay, I'm going to wait for 3 or 4 seconds and then decide what to do, then you can actually choose with your thoughts and your frontal lobe what I'm going to do. And the secret about anger, because that's a problem one for a lot of us, is to change the anger into determination to get the outcome that you want.
So, Doctor, by the way, I apologize. I don't know if you heard that noise. That's just
Yeah.
that's the weather center. Apparently, we have a tornado watch. So,
Yes.
well, I mean, that's what they say. I mean, we're not an area where tornadoes are very common, but you never know. I mean, I'm not. We're in spring. It's not even summertime, but hey, everything is possible. It's funny. You just talked about earthquake and
That's
again,
right.
tornado. Like, hey, this stuff is. No, I don't know. There's vibes out there, so we'll keep it at that.
But you're not fearful of hurricane, and that's good.
Well, I mean, there's nothing I can do. I'm here. Listen, the only thing that can happen right now, if something happens, we'll be cut off if the power goes. But hopefully everything is good. And they're set until 10 p.m. So we're only half an hour. But hey, a lot of things can happen in a half hour. But so I apologize for the noise. That is actually our feed to the channel for phone calls. So, but alerts are alerts. They come on TV. If you were watching, this will be probably local as well. And by the way, for our audiences that are watching, Dr. Heim is really in the future as always. So it's Tuesday there. It's actually the future, and we're in the past. That's a joke, folks. It's just he's in Australia. Just because it's funny I'm saying that, doctor, because someone one time they had a big debate about like how can you somebody asked how's the future? It's like, oh, you can't be talking about the future. Nobody knows. Folks, it's just timelines. We're just having fun. But it is true. You're in the future. It's tomorrow. So that's all there is. But hey, so Doc, I mean, it's amazing that you're talking about all these things, but emotions have been also, how can I say it? I mean, used, right?
Yeah.
To manipulate, to
Yeah.
change hearts, to in relationships, in politics, in
Yeah.
movies. I mean, it's like everything is really playing on this. I mean, it's almost like one of the strongest things that can impact human behavior.
Yeah, it is.
Am I getting that right? Or
Hurricane, what you're saying is right. And I'm going to slow down a little bit, because we've just gone through a whole lot of knowledge and information about what emotions are and how they work in the brain. But now you're getting down to the nitty-gritty of what it means to be human, because we love our emotions, but they can get us into trouble at the same time. And I've just talked about how good it would be if we can link up our thoughts and our emotions to make the decisions that we want. But let's take that wonderful feeling of being in love, all right? And unfortunately, when we're looking for a love partner and we're in the mating and dating game, there's that saying, all is fair in love and war. And what that means is that humans have the ability to manipulate each other to get what they want. And emotions are such a big part of this. And the art of persuasion. Now, persuasion gets used for love. It gets used on social media. It gets used in commercial aspects, and it gets used in political aspects to use our emotions to get us to do what somebody else wants us to do. And this is where arousing emotions becomes very important, but it can become very manipulative. And so, to avoid that manipulation, it helps to be aware of your own emotions and to link emotions with thoughts so that you can make a decision. Am I now about to do what I actually want to do? Or am I a slave to my emotions at the moment? And a lot of human living is actually on that level, Hurricane.
That
Oh,
is
you might
pretty, that's it's pretty scary, man. I mean, it's really a fine line too, right? I
oh yeah.
mean, it's like how do we control things? And frankly, it's a big play, and people know how to use it. I think one of the previous shows we talked about marketing and the power of marketing, and you had mentioned that some of the best psychiatry doctors and specialists, they actually are used in the marketing and how to people behave and how to instigate or trigger all these reactions from people, and it's something that we can, to your point, we can use either way. I mean, it's up to us. And so in that, what advice would you tell people, so we can wrap up the question, about how do we kind of adjust ourselves and tweak things, when we're facing, I mean, not just fear, any other thing. I mean, we are getting bombarded. How do we play with that?
Yeah. Okay. So this is really important, Hurricane. I'm glad that you asked that. And yeah, last time we looked at marketing and some of the manipulation that can go on in marketing. But let's be a bit more positive today, and let's look at relationships,
Mm.
and let's look at the process of falling in love, and using it for us rather than against us. And we often talk about how people manipulate each other in love, but rather than manipulate, let's look at the word influence. Because if you feel that you are with somebody that you could have a good relationship with, you want to be able to give enough of yourself and show enough of yourself honestly so that they can build trust, you can build trust, and it moves forward in a positive direction. And it's the same mechanism as the manipulation because we're arousing emotions. But here's the difference: you actually have your own best interests and the other person's best interests at heart. And that's the difference between manipulation and influence for good. Having care for one another, having the idea that I want what's best for me, for you, for us, and for the world. And if we can have that kind of idea happening, then we're actually going to have a much more positive outcome, even though we're using emotions in the same way. You want to fall in love. You want to feel good about each other. You want those feelings to be strong, and you want to influence each other. And that becomes part of that decision when you've put together your emotions and your thinking. You go, okay, so what am I actually doing here? Am I actually an agent for the good of myself and the other person? Or am I being manipulative? Or are they being manipulative? It's not always evident where we're actually operating.
Well, so is it safe to say that, I mean, there's different levels of emotions that we are
Yeah,
experiencing, and depends on who is it towards and who is coming from, and what surround, well, I guess the environment, triggers
yeah.
different levels.
Yeah. So the big word that we're looking at, Hurricane, is trust.
Mm.
And in a world where it increasingly seems that we can't trust people, when you know that you are with somebody that you can trust, that makes an amazing bond, be it parent child, be it a couple in love, be it a friendship. That idea of trust is one of the most beautiful emotions that we can experience. And in the brain, that's mediated by a chemical called oxytocin. When you feel good about somebody that you love, when you feel good in a friendship, or even if you've made a deal with somebody and you shake hands and you say deal, that all feels good. And all of that is mediated by the positive emotion of trust. And ideally, there's no manipulation behind it. Yeah, we're both gaining out of this. This feels good. We're part on the good side of life.
Well, thank you, Dak. I'm smiling because, well, you always go to the the different, I guess, chemical pieces
Yeah,
of our brains and how they operate, oxytocin, I mean, dopamine and all this stuff.
yeah,
And I just like, I mean, it's again, the more you hear about these things, like, before I started all this stuff, I mean, this was like, like nothing. I mean, I known, and the more I got involved with the shows, and specifically, I mean, we're in our fifth season here, so I kind of became obsessed with, well, I'm becoming obsessed with all these tech, things about humans. I mean, I really see them as just fascinating creation stuff.
yeah.
Uh,
That's exactly right. Yeah,
and by the way, I just want to highlight something. As the last part of the response for our first question, and we're almost taking plenty of time on this one, but it is a big one. You are actually the host, you and Caroline. The host of the resilient relationship. So so this stuff is really tying into that work that you do on the other show. And by the way, you can listen to that show, folks. And if you're watching or listening, you can have all the episodes on the radio as well as on the previous or on our channels. Whatever you can watch us, you can actually get a little bit of that. So yeah, again, it's amazing. I mean, you guys done quite a bit of work in relationship, studying and really
yeah,
it's phenomenal.
yeah. And Hurricane, thanks for saying that, because one of the things that's relevant to what we're talking about at the moment is that to have a good relationship takes more than feelings. It takes a decision as well. And just as I talked about, the best outcome for us is if we can put together our emotions and our thoughts. We've got to do that so that we can have the best outcome in our relationships. To trust somebody, to shake somebody's hand and say, yeah, I trust you, takes a decision as well as a feeling of goodwill. And it's always not only a balance, but the two of them together, the thinking and the feeling, to have a good outcome. If we go just with our feelings, we all know that if we go just with our feelings, we're liable to make mistakes. And if we go just with our thinking, we might get the right answer, but life doesn't feel alive and fresh. So it's a balance between the two that makes us human beings capable of growth and growing together as well. And I suppose that's what resilience is in relationships.
But it does sound like being balanced. Am I
Yeah.
catching that? We-
Yeah.
everything in due balance. I mean, you have to be balanced in everything that we do in life, and relationship is a big one of part of our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a relationship doesn't happen by itself. Nothing gets better by itself. If you don't mow the grass, okay, it's not going to get better by itself. It needs some effort. And that's the thinking part of a relationship. It might feel good, but feelings enough are not enough to move forward in a good relationship. You've got to work at it as well. And that takes the thinking part. What do I need to drive my relationship forward? What's the effort I've got to put in? How can I give and take so that we move forward together?
Well, doctor, thank you so much. I think we've spent enough on this question.
Oh,
I mean, listen, I have so many questions. They're all loaded today, and I think
oh
they
gosh,
all
okay.
got they all gonna talk about the human, I guess, phenomena. I'm gonna
Yeah.
leave it at that because we are a super phenomena, right? All right. So the next one, I'm gonna put it up here. It's a two parts because I can't fit all that stuff in one piece. So let's go, folks. Here we go. Right. So, why do people believe the way they do, with such a vast opposite and extreme views, such as in the case of politics, religion, even though we have the same intellectual capabilities and logic constructs? People tend to defy the disability of right and wrong. Makes sense, but then again, what does make sense mean? Lisa, California. I told you it's loaded. So, but I know you're capable to get us, the the answer for that one. Let's do this.
Okay, so great question again from Lisa in California, but it's such a big question that I do want to go at it in two parts. So first thing I've got to do is I'm running out of battery here. So just talk for a moment, Hurricane. So I've got to plug in. All right.
Okay, yes, no problem. Let's do this. All right, folks. So you're catching up. If you're watching right now, listening, this is Climb to Your Prime with Dr. Heim. So do us a favor, just subscribe to whatever channel we're in, so you can catch more. This is a monthly. There's a playlist of this. You can catch the previous shows. You can watch on Facebook. You can watch all over the place. Soon enough, you'll be on Samsung and all the other, I guess platforms. So you can download whatever you want and watch these programs. That we have. Stay tuned also for other programs that we're going to have about some updates on health and fitness and wellness, what's going on around the globe. So we're just getting busy here. And of course, we appreciate, our guest, our guest, Dr. Heim. He is back with us. So we're going to bring him on board here.
Okay, thanks very much, Hurricane. So we're going to look at the first part of Lisa's question. And the first part actually ties in with emotions, because we're talking about politics. How is it that people can have extreme views that are so different and we're all intelligent? Okay, it just can't be true that half the population of a country are stupid and the other half are intelligent, because we are all intelligent. All right, so into the mix has to come emotions. Now I'm going to open up the idea of emotions to include beliefs and values. So the left and right in politics is actually valuing, the left values progress, to move forward, to change things so that things get better. And the right side of politics basically values keeping things the same, keeping the values that we have that are good so that we don't screw things up. Now, actually, a society needs both. You need to move forward to progress in the areas that we can improve, but you also need to keep the values that society has that are working for us, and that's what the conservative side of politics happens. However, particularly in a world that is now saturated by social media and every piece of news travels so fast, it means that our opinions, we validate ourselves by listening to things that our own brains agree with, which means that we become stronger and stronger in our beliefs and our values. And what happens then is we start to clash. We actually grow apart to become more extreme to the opposite sides of the pole, when, like keeping thoughts and feelings together, keeping left and right together so that we progress in the right directions and we keep the right things about society actually happen together. Because over a century, what we found out in politics is we do move and progress the way that the left of politics actually want us to. But if we do that too quickly, then that's actually not good for society. So we need that anchor of the right while we have the freedom or the balloon of the left. So the image is a balloon going off into new horizons, but with an anchor so that it doesn't go off into strange places. And it's emotions, beliefs, and values that can get manipulated, but it drives all the conflict.
Doctor, I mean, it is an amazing, construct as
Yeah,
stated in the question. I mean, you know, historically, we know that there have been so many wrongs and rights,
yeah,
that happened, that eventually in time we figured out that, well, wow, that shouldn't have happened or could have happened differently
yes,
because of these extreme views. I mean, it's this is not new. It's always been in existence. I mean, I
yes,
guess since the inception of, I guess, humans on this planet, we've had these kind of opposite attracts, whatever, poles, of everything. Like there's the good, the bad, the right and the left, and eh, same people. I mean, when you think about conflict, right? I mean, you watch people who fight. I mean, I'm not even going to go far. Let's stay in the States, for example. I mean, we had the Civil War, right?
yeah,
Brothers against family members fought against each other. I mean, it's amazing. Like same people, we're friends today and tomorrow we're enemies. Why? I mean, I don't get it. And but because of the views, because of the beliefs, because of the way everybody sees they kind of have their own, I guess, inclination, in a way, to some behavior that makes sense for them. I think we've covered some of this before, that everybody kind of looks at it from their own way. Like I see one thing that makes sense for me, so it benefits me, therefore I'm going to go for it. Somebody else says, well, no, I don't agree with you because, I have this. I mean, one of the biggest debates, for example, is racism, right? And people
Yeah,
that are like completely against, a particular race or religion, whatever the case. And we have these extreme, views, all over the world. And it shouldn't happen, because at the end of the day, we are human. We are
yes,
all the same.
yeah,
We have the same emotions. We live on the same planet. We share the same stuff. And only at, as like you might give the example of earthquake earlier. I in a couple of years back we had major storms out here at least in the Jersey and New York area,
yeah,
and I've seen people come together in a disaster environment
yes,
where there's no more difference between this one, the right or the left and stuff. Everybody comes together in one place. We've seen it in the pandemic. People of all walks, kind of help each other, even though it was dangerous or stuff. People came up to the play, right? They raised themselves, they rose to the occasion, as we say, right? So we
yeah,
have a lot of stuff of this, and yet it is a very complex concept of humanity, like
yes,
and again, people take sides.
yes.
That's kind of like weird.
Well, okay, it's part of the thing that's actually weird is having this all or nothing thinking. The
Mm,
idea that one side is completely right and the other side is completely wrong, and vice versa. So I'm going to take some specific examples that basically, I can't even say that everybody will agree, right? But okay, so the 60s in America was a time for advancing civil human rights, particularly for blacks in the country.
mhm,
Now, there'd be only very few people to say these days that that wasn't a good thing, that it is actually good to see people as equal. We actually look at it and we go, yeah, that's good. Now, what we've done is we're extending more and more rights to more and more people, and it'd be very hard for people to say that's not a good thing, right? But in that process, we are eroding certain values, and I'm going to take family values. I'm going to take the idea that a nuclear family, people who are staying together and are loving each other as people, um, and should that be eroded? Well, most people will say, no, we actually want family values. We want people to stay together as families. Now, we may extend the definition of what we believe a family is, but we don't want to destroy the idea of family, because we have too much scientific evidence that shows that a family, a group of people that love each other and come together, is the best nurturing environment and the most stable environment for children. We've got too much evidence about that, just as we have too much evidence to say that as far as races are concerned on Earth, that there is so much that unites us and we are all equal of value as human beings, but by and largely, we have the same worth and we have the same capabilities, and we actually all advance more when we make use of some of the differences in all of the different races. So in other words, the variety is good. So here's the question. How do we take the advances that we get from the left, but make sure we don't erode the good things that we have society that is basically entrenched in the right? How do we keep the best from both sides? And the answer is we swing from one to the other and we vote people in and out so that we eventually get to the best. And we don't want to interfere with that process, but it seems to be getting harder and harder. And one of the things is actually social media, because it's driving us apart rather than pulling us together.
People would probably tend to disagree to that. They think that they actually get a social, as they call it, social media.
Yeah,
I mean, it's almost like unbelievable. Like it's social, but it's antisocial in a way, because it kind of breaks people apart.
yeah,
Um,
that's right. And we've got scientific evidence to show that, Hurricane. And one thing that I lament and I feel deeply about as a psychiatrist is the wonderful thing about being a psychiatrist is you get to work with people, but you work with the scientific evidence as well. And we have so much scientific evidence to show that social media actually is working against us at the moment, and we just need to regulate it, just like we regulated drinking and smoking, particularly for younger people. And if we regulate it, then perhaps we will get better outcomes in society. And there's so much that we do that we could do better if we listen to the science.
Doctor, thank you so much for that. I mean, I want to just point something out. As you said, that regulation of social media and stuff. I know it's evaded a lot of places, a lot of, I guess, countries, liberal countries, or more progressive, I would, or advanced countries, you want to call it. But there is an example. I mean, as you know, I've come to become very close to the UAE and Dubai. That's my one of my favorite destinations, and I've been enjoying my trips there, and what I discovered, well, at least and they have extreme laws, but their laws actually are working. I mean, they're really giving
Yeah.
people the environment to live, to thrive, to do everything. But with these laws and these kind of policies that they have in place, they can make people enjoy their life without, you don't have to fear. There's safety. There's all kind of stuff, and they control these things. So talking about social, one of the things that, for example, they even certify some. If you're like an influencer, you got to go through some certification and stuff. If you make a bad joke about somebody or offend someone or whatever, they control these things and they monitor these things, and it's feasible. So if they can do it, I think the rest of the world can do it. And
Okay.
again, it's a shout out to them. And I know some people would disagree with me because like too extreme and too protective, but it's working. I mean, I think
Yeah.
people are enjoying it.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, the USA is a country where people can disagree with you, Hurricane, because what you've done is you've brought up another aspect where we need a balance, right?
Mhm.
And the balance is, do we have more authoritarian society where the government controls a lot, or do we have a lot more freedom, which is what a democracy has, so that people can express themselves however they want, even to the detriment of themselves? And it works in the UAE. No, I've got that wrong.
It's correct.
Yeah,
The
okay,
way it
UAE.
is.
But to bring it over to the USA would not work as such. So it's another balance. How free do you make your societies? And again, the extremes, to have them absolutely free, will result in too much manipulation. And to have them absolutely authoritarian will also allow manipulation. So the idea is to go through this swinging, just like between right and left, to find something that is right for every society. And that actually brings us to another point of Lisa's question, because she asked about religion as well.
Correct.
Okay. And so, in that, you have countries that value religion over other values in society. And so that then influences the type of society that they actually organize. And the UAE is one of those. And you can look at the things that work in that, and you can look at the things that don't work as well. And you can say, well, maybe that's right for these people, but does that mean that it's right for everybody? And scientifically, we don't have the answer to that.
Well, you're right. But here's the thing. I mean, again, I know. I think you've been to Dubai, right, and to the
Yeah,
UAE, and I mean, there's more, I guess, expats from the West in there than probably the locals. I mean, in terms of numbers,
yeah,
and and they come from different, backgrounds and religious beliefs, and
yeah.
nations that have all these freedoms, and they don't fear. I mean, they're not against the the regulatory stuff, because here's the thing. I mean, freedom is not real. I mean, it's really a hoax. I'm sorry to say it. I mean, it's it's just whatever you make it to be, right? I mean, there's a level. No one is completely free, even the U.S. I mean, I mean, we can see the politics today. I mean, there's all kind of stuff. I mean, even if you're, I mean, if even immigration policies are changing now, right? You make the wrong statement, you never know. I mean, there's certain things that are changing all over the world. But what I'm saying, when I mentioned, when what I found fascinating about, for example, the regulation on social media, they were able to, very simple. If you're gonna offend someone or bully on social media, I mean, it's public, right? They can go after you, and then you can find penalties, right? Face penalties. That's not extreme. That's just basically, it's like if you have a violation on the road, when you cut a red light or hit somebody, or bully someone, if you're physical, there's physical, touching and bullying. There's mental bullying, we're the mental show, right? So people actually do get very crazy on the social media, and they extreme, and they post things, and they claim things, because again, we talked about this previous shows, that it's a lot easier when you're braver when it's on screen, right? It's different if
Yeah,
I'm facing someone in person, right? So it's
yes,
changing. But I think they were able to mitigate that to a degree that is not taking your freedoms, but it's limiting, the content, for example, that you place,
yes,
right? And
yes,
and how do you address things? I mean, so people are more respectful. They know not to cross the lines. They got that nice little space to play in. It's a big playground, but
yes,
don't cross over. I mean, you cross
yeah,
over, then and we have that in the States. I mean, it's the same thing. It's just that, how, as you said, you said it right. I mean, how much of that left or
yes.
right, right?
That's right. And the way you're speaking about it, Hurricane, is you're emphasizing what's going right. Okay, and that's good. And just using Western examples, we know that if we give regimes too much authoritarian control, then they can actually control a whole society by, well, literally brainwashing people and getting them to think the way that they believe they should think. Okay. And so that's why the USSR broke down in 1989, because we decided that was not a good way to go. All right. And also the example of Zimbabwe, which was a country that was starting to thrive. And then a single president came in, and over a 10-year period, basically destroyed all of that because he wielded too much power, are the examples of where authoritarian regimes don't work. And so in human history, there have been very few authoritarian regimes that have actually been benevolent and have worked on behalf of the people. So again, we're looking at this balance, and we're looking at this area of beliefs, and we introduced politics and religion, but science aims to be free of these values. It doesn't, by the way, but it does. It gives it its best shot, so that we can objectively see. And this is part of what Lisa looked at. What can we agree on?
Mm.
And the science is actually the best bet of what we can agree on. And the idea of science is to find a system whereby we can allow people then to express their beliefs safely and get on with each other. And science does have that, but we're
Well,
not listening to science.
listen,
Yeah.
science is as clear as, I mean, crystal clear. I mean, obviously it's a work in progress. There's always
Oh, yeah. Oh,
discoveries, there's
gosh.
more stuff, and there's always studies and things. But again, I mean, the reason I mentioned the UA, for example, it was more
Yes.
about the concept of, because it is a big dilemma. I mean, the stuff that goes
Yes, it
on
is.
social is just going out of whack. I mean, and some places people don't have limits. They just go crazy. They do stuff, and it's really impactful. Now, I think what they, I mean, I don't see them as authoritarian personally. I mean, they have some controls, but I know, because when you have a very diversified population and different extreme coming from different parts of the world, you can have a lot of, crazy going, right? And so by,
Yep.
by setting some measure, I really, I mean, it's funny because I had a show, we talked about real estate in Dubai, but really, it looks like they have a corporation and they have a CEO that runs it as a corporation. So it's a business savvy, model. It's all, progressive, is really futuristic and all that stuff. But they have measures. I mean, when you work in a company, and countries have constitutions, companies have constitutions, or policies and procedures, right? Regulatory stuff, and everybody has to follow certain things. So there is a way to find that medium, that medium ground,
Yes.
and I think
Yes.
we can agree on that. And so I'm not, listen, I am American. I am Moroccan. I am Muslim. I mean, I have a little bit of flavor in all these angles, and I appreciate all of them. I mean, for example, I come from a kingdom, right? And I personally, I think a kingdom works, and I can agree, and I'm not agree, but I can share why I say that. It's just that when you have parties, right? For example, in the case of the States, we have that extreme stuff. By the way, in a kingdom, they still have, like in Morocco, it's called the what do you call it? Democratic monarchy. So they do have an actual prime minister. They do have parliaments. They do have the right and left and all the parties and all the stuff. There's more parties, I think, that we have in the States. However, they have a figure as a king who has a level of decision making. Spain has that. England has that. I mean, maybe Spain is less, I guess involved. I mean, England is definitely more symbolic. I mean, there's even Japan has an emperor, right? So we have these things, but it varies in the state of how you look at it. So I'm not, for one or the other. I'm just saying, like, some places or some groups, they work better in certain environments. As you
Okay,
said, in the States, we like our freedoms. I mean,
that's right.
all our amendments, they're lined up. You talk to anyone, they're gonna be like, Amendment 1, Second Amendment. I mean, that's a big one, right? The fifth, forget about it. Don't say a word. I mean, we have a lot of these things, and we believe in them. We love them. We cherish them, and they've
Yes.
served us well. But we need to adjust and update. I mean, that's what they call addendums, right? Or amendments. But we can put an addendum to an amendment.
Okay, so I'll speak to that a little bit. Firstly, we do have what's called a World Democracy Index, where there is a list of 165, 167 countries as far as where they are on the authoritarian or full democracy continuum. And it's a continuum, and over the years, countries sort of fluctuate. And the idea is that because we live in a total age, particularly in the West, where individualism is valued, democracy and freedoms are valued. However, in a full democracy, and Australia, I'm giving a little shout out to Australia here,
Yeah.
Australia has actually been the first country to say, you know what, we're going to say that people under the age of 16 are not allowed to access social media. So they have actually put in a ban to say that under 16s are not allowed on social media. It hasn't come into effect yet. It's due to come into effect the start of 2026. And Jonathan Haidt, who wrote a beautiful book called The Anxious Generation, sees that as one of the best recommendations that we could actually do from a legislative point of view to save our children's minds, basically, so that they have imaginations, relationships, and can engage with each other in this give and take of emotions plus thinking and relate to each other without social media driving us to the extremes. So Australia started it, and hopefully it goes ahead, and then other countries will see how it's worked. And there is lobbying, because that's what happens in democracies, in the USA, to see if the USA could do the same thing.
Listen, sign me up. I mean, listen. It's funny. It's that would be perceived as very extreme. I mean, I can
Yes,
just see
yes,
the
yes.
challenge. In the States. I mean, you can't take a phone from our kids. I mean, listen, my kids would have tantrum. I mean, back 5 years ago, if
Yes.
I took my kids are not, they're past the teenage days now, but at the time, you would take a phone away from them, they'll have a
Yes.
fit. I mean, that's like their life. I mean, they live on social media,
That's
and
right.
so this kind of law will be perceived as the most extreme law that you can possibly have. I mean,
That is
I
true.
think
I'm going to
I
go
think
to the
this.
science here, okay? Because the good thing about the law is based on the science. And the science shows that early exposure, and this science comes out from the World Health Organization, that recommends that in the first year of life, no child should ever be near a screen.
Mhm.
And in the first year of life, the first 5 years, the less the better. Okay, less than 1 hour a day of screen in the first 5 years. And quite frankly, the science is saying the less the better. So the good thing about a democracy is if you can look at the science and start to enact laws that are based on the science for the good of everybody in that democracy, then the future should actually look brighter.
True. So, Doc, I mean, you know me, I love your stuff, but here's the thing. I'm just thinking American right now, right? And by the way,
Hey,
I support the idea, just so you know. But at the same time, I can see you mentioned the word lobbying, right?
I did.
It's a
I did.
powerful thing we have in the States. The lobby, the lobbies are big, all kind of lobbyists
Yes.
groups out there, right? Now,
Yes.
and we talked about emotions earlier.
Yes,
So
that's
imagine
exactly right. Thank you for
this
doing that.
this will trigger so much emotion. I mean, we have parents who scream because somebody talks a little tough to their kids, right? I mean,
That's right.
I mean, back in the days, if my neighbor says something to me like, "Hey, shut up," or whatever, today will be abused, right? You know, yeah. But so imagine that, when you say like your kids cannot touch a screen, you cannot have a computer,
Yes.
it's the law. Now that
Yes.
will be perceived as authority. That would be as a dictatorship. Like you can't take
Good.
my right away. So it's going to be very challenging, and I'm sure that's going to be challenged by many groups, and not only groups, I would say even industries, because
That's
how do you influence you know
right.
these teenagers to get into all these habits and buying and doing stuff, and get them
I'm
excited and get
so
their
glad
parents.
that you related this back to emotions and influence and persuasion, because you're right. And this is what happens about being human. But I'll give a shout out to the science. And the good thing about this law of banning under 16-year-olds for social media in Australia is that the law is based on science. And if more people were actually aware of the science, and would actually then trust the science, and there comes that word trust again, okay, rather than, and this is something that grieves me in our society, Hurricane, that if we don't like the science, then we pick and choose scientists that say certain things, and we have a scientific debate. It's like having a scientific debate on smoking. We now know beyond doubt that the more you smoke, the shorter that you will live. Okay. That is science. And so we enact laws. We don't allow children to smoke, but we still allow them other things like social media, which actually is to their detriment. Okay. And this is where it becomes lobbying, yes, because that's all persuasion and emotions, but it's also awareness. If society became more aware of the science, the robust science, not the um, not the stuff where we're not quite sure of things, but the robust science, and we were able to put laws together based on robust science, then we'd be able to move forward into a brighter future.
Well, doctor, I think. Listen, I mean, again, I'm in agreement that it should. I mean, I have no problem with it personally because I listen. If I could stop my kids from having it, I would have. I mean, unfortunately, I couldn't because they'll just call 911 and say, "Hey, my dad is abusive," right? So, so that's kind of like. But here's the thing. You're right. The science is clear. I mean, it is a drug. I mean, frankly, it's an addiction. It's
Yes.
proven. We've talked about it. Everybody knows it.
Yes.
I mean, these kids out, people have died looking at their phones because they cross the street, not even looking.
Yes.
People are zombies, in these things, right? And they're so attached to it, and it's like a problem. It's the same thing as drug. Now, here's the thing. I mean, a good example, you know, pornography and stuff like that. I mean, it's not given to kids, right? I mean, it's
That's right.
something that's natural, but it's limited. You can, you know. Rated R, rated PG, whatever. You have all these ratings, for example, in movies. There's a reason for that. So there's laws that, so you can't, for example, if you take the kids to movies and it's a 17 whatever, and you're like 15 or 14, you're not going to see the movie unless you have an adult with you, right? So
Yes.
and they applied these things. So to your point, it's feasible. The problem is to get people to, as you said, to see the science and see how it is and how it's going to benefit the people. But it's going to take education now. I mean, it's almost
That's
like
right.
reverse. We're so far. I mean, this could have been great 10 years, 15 years ago. We're
That's
so far. It's like a pandemic that creeped up on us, and stopping it now, it's just going to be very difficult. And again, it depends. And I think people have seen also the freedoms that come with social media. I mean,
yes.
anyone can say anything at any given time,
Yes.
and on anybody. It doesn't matter. There's
Yes.
no limits now. I mean, I can, that's what
And
I
that
said.
has some advantages as well.
Well, I'm sorry.
That has some advantages as well, to be
True.
able to say anything that you like at any given time. But as a psychiatrist working in a country that is a full democracy, I know that the onus is on the individual.
Mm.
So if you believe that the science that social media is bad for your children, then you as a parent have the responsibility of doing something like that, even though it's difficult. And that's the thing, Hurricane, it is difficult. Whereas in a more authoritarian country, more is relied upon on the government to come up with laws and we just follow them. Whereas here, each individual, like Lisa from California, has to wade through the complexities between belief, values, and emotions, to which I would add science. okay, to add the science to the beliefs, values, and emotions wherever possible to come up with the best outcome for what is good for yourself and your family.
Well, thank you, Doc. And again, I love it. The thing is, I guess, as you said, if people are supporting this bill or this law, right, and
Yes,
they're gonna transit it. I mean, I don't know if it's gonna be just okay. You're 16 or less. You're not gonna be able to see a phone, or the phone is gonna be canceled. I mean, I'll give you a good example. You know, you're not supposed to drink alcohol in the states unless you're 21.
yes,
But kids drink in the states
right,
because parents buy the drinks, right? And they
yes,
share them, and you have that. So how can you stop that? I mean, you can tell people you can't have it. Someone, you come to daddy's, screens
yes,
that have all the social media you want in the name of maybe you can portray yourself as an adult.
that's right.
Like for example, a lot of places say you have to be 18 to sign up for
Yeah,
these apps and stuff. But you can say I'm 18 and you can put any date of birth. It's not
yes,
like they're checking your ID, right?
yeah,
So,
that's
so
right.
these things, yeah. What's the system like? I mean, I'm just
Okay,
curious.
so the first thing is you will find exceptions where people will get around the law, but that doesn't make the law bad. That just makes it incomplete. But the way the Australian government is proposing to get around this is they're making the social media platforms responsible for who comes onto their platform. So, in other words, the onus is on them to make sure that people under the age of 16 do not come onto their platform, which means there has to be walls, just like there are at pornography sites, that make sure that you filter out all children. And if they're not strong enough, then it's actually the platform's responsibility. And that's actually very clever. And of course, a lot of the multi national corporations and platforms are not too happy about this.
Well, listen. I can just imagine. We're on YouTube right now, on Instagram,
Yep.
right? You can imagine TikTok or X or any of those platforms. They're gonna go, going nuts with this. But
And
but
they
here's the thing. But here's the thing. I mean, you mentioned something about adult side, right? Well, listen. It says, "Are you 18? Yes or no?" I mean, my kids can do yes and claim that they're 18. I mean, as you said, there's people.
Okay,
I,
so let me deal with that straight away,
yeah.
because the laws regarding that are on the person who is using them. Okay, so if somebody lies, that's on them. But let's say these pornography sites were then responsible for anybody who came on there that was under the age of 18, then they couldn't just go yes or no. They would say, you need to register, we need to have your date of birth, and the checks and balances would become stronger. And so this all depends on how laws are written. And it's actually really important, because
Mm.
you're totally right in what you're saying, Hurricane. Anybody can go onto any pornography site just by saying that they're over 18 when they're only 15. You're quite right.
Someone said, like, what do you know about that? Just can't believe it. Anyways, guys, just a little joke there. But here's the thing, folks. I love it. But here's the thing. I can see just the platforms going nuts. I mean, how can they even? I mean, really to really facilitate this and control it, and put these. I mean, you have to have IDs that are literally physical IDs available that get scanned. Because I mean, for example, YouTube. I mean, we have the new YouTube channel because the old one they get shut down, and we're building a new one. But like every 2 months, they tell me like you need to upload your picture ID because we need to verify that it's you, right?
That's right.
So if kids don't even have an ID, that's good. Again, I don't know about Australia, but in the States, I mean, unless you have a permit, when you're like 16 years old, you might have a passport, whatever, but it's like it's gonna almost drive people to have these things. And as you said, I mean, it's gonna be like the parents can play around this because they can,
Yes, I can.
I want to spoil my kids, I don't want them to be
Yes,
deprived, blah blah blah. But then the platforms are gonna get fined. They're gonna have these problems. I mean, again, I don't want to be in the seats of those think tanks, when they're thinking about how they're gonna do this. Because this is gonna be, but I'm sure if they figure it out, then it could be rolled out to everybody else that wants to join in into this particular law. But I do agree. I mean, it is powerful if we can limit the input that is coming in to our brains and especially our children, because it's really manipulative. I mean, we've seen disasters. I mean, in the U.S., we've seen children go into schools and shooting, other kids and stuff like that, right? We have these massive shootings at malls and stuff, and these
yes,
are kids that have just been so excited about,
Yes.
movies, right? And they just, oh, let me get an AR, let me go out there and do my thing, right? And it's like it's a game to them, right? And it is mind, that's working. It is definitely psychiatry, worthy, of treatment and at least addressing, but they do it. So you're right. This influence can make a big difference into. So again, it's amazing to hear this.
But I'm going to tie all that back down into psychiatry as we practice it in a free democracy, but also into Lisa's second question, which had to do about right or wrong in situations like this.
Mm.
Because what happens is in a free democracy, there is much more onus on the individual to make decisions for themselves as to what is good or bad, right or wrong. You can do whatever you want, but that idea of what's right or wrong, we leave to you. And that puts enormous responsibility, and it puts enormous responsibility, particularly on young people, to have everything worked out. And that's really, really difficult, whereas that becomes less of an issue in more autocratic societies. Now, as to what's ever right or wrong, as a psychiatrist, when I sit down with an individual, we're able to talk through the issues as it pertains to that particular person, to the person right in front of me. And we build up trust and we explore what we do believe, what we don't believe. And then we put on one layer that's called the science. And the science shows that. And Hurricane, I know I always come back to science, okay, but it is a really good anchor because science is our best shot at objective reality, and it's our best shot at knowing what we agree on. Like you and I may have completely different beliefs in the political area, we may have completely different beliefs in the religious area, but it doesn't matter because you and I know that we are two human beings in the same society, negotiating the same rules, and there's a trust, but also a respect for our differences and our similarities, because it's actually best if we get on peacefully together, and that's what we do. And the science says that the more conversations that we have, just like the one that we're having right now, the more we're actually going to get on with people and actually like each other. And that's the science of the mere exposure effect. And that science I'm actually excited about, but it takes time.
Well, listen, Doc. There's nothing. Listen, science. I mean, again, personally, just my personal belief. Okay, and this is just my own opinion. I am a person of a particular religious, belief, concept, right? But I actually do a lot of stuff with along with the science, meaning that even in religion, I do believe that religion and science do mingle well.
That's right.
At least in the Islamic faith, we have a lot of science in it, right? So we have some things that are rules and regulations and jurisprudence and all that, but the science does kind of jive with it, right? So I have
Yes.
no problem with it, and I use those things. And sometimes some people can debate that, like they go like literally just with the emotion part of it, not the logical part of it. Science is logical; it has factual stuff. It is things that are, and that's the thing. I mean, it's the more people are open to, as you said, to the science to understand how things work. And it's always like in the business world, right? And I know we're just past the hour here, but in the business world, as a leader, for example, in sales, right? One of the things that I've always, trained, staff and especially management is that you can't tell people what do this and do the other without kind of giving some rationale. For me, I get more results when I give them, listen, this is what we're facing, this is what we have to do, and this is why, blah blah blah, and this is what would happen if we added one, two, three, four steps, whatever, or policy. Even when you change policy, why? And because that's the first thing. Everybody is on a default no. Everybody is reactive to. I think we all set on no as a default, right? So the minute you tell people we're gonna change, like, what the hell, right? But if you tell people like the rationale behind it, which is scientific, because you have the evidence to prove why we're doing this and what's the outcome and the benefit from it, who's going to say no to it? You'll find people more accepting of the change when you give them that. And I think this is exactly the same thing here. And by the way, that can work in politics. It can work in everything. If you give the facts, I mean, even political, debates, they try to put the science in there in their own way, right? They give like the statistics, then they show all these graphs, and this is why, and the economy, blah blah blah. We can show this, And so people get excited, like, oh, you're gonna give us, all the stuff. We're gonna make millions, right? So, things like that. But it is factual and it works. So you're right. I mean, science is king, queen, whatever you want. I mean,
Okay.
it's no gender to it, but
Yeah, no, that's right. And Hurricane, maybe it would be good if we spent a whole session on religion and science and how they interact.
oh, I
But
love it.
but because we've brought up a few things, I just want to clarify a few things to say that science and the various religions that we have in the world, they take care of two separate realities, and they can gel together really quite well. In fact, science has benefits so much from religions. For example, in the Islamic tradition, you don't paint the face of God, and so a lot more gets done in abstract design, which means that Arabic science actually grew in geometry and numbers and astronomy. And in fact, the Western countries use Arabic numerals for a reason, because it came from the science of mathematics from the Middle East. And because the Christian Judaic religion, Judeo-Christian religion, said that God is a God of order, the scientists said, well, if God is a God of order, then we can actually find out about the order in nature. And so, because of the different religions, science has become rich. But all in all, science uses logic to talk about things about this particular world, whereas religions, if they talk about this particular world, they always talk about it in the context of another world that science has nothing to say about. So the two quite happily coexist. And if we were able to look at that again, we'd find out that we get on pretty well together, because when we look at objective logic, they're the things that we can all agree on. And if we respect each other's values and beliefs, then we can move forward to getting the best in left and right over politics.
Whew. Listen, I love this stuff. I mean, we can go another hour easily, right? So I guess we gotta table this for the next one. So next month, I mean, actually, it's this month. We're just gonna, we have one in the. This is gonna be like 2030. We're gonna have, well, in
Yeah.
our in Islamic, months, we're gonna have two Ramadans in 2030. Just, I mean, and for those that don't know, we just finished Ramadan. So in 2030, we're gonna have both in January and December, two of the same month in the same year, which is going to be a unique experience. Let's see how that plays then. If we live then, let's see. We'll get through that, experience. But so the same concept here. We're gonna have one this week, and we're gonna have one at the end of the month in this particular show. So yeah, stay tuned. And by the way, there is a question that is very loaded about religion that's coming up. I think we can tie it back into this, in the next one, and hopefully, we can, I guess, open up some of the the minds out there and see how they can see with it. I mean, I love it.
Yeah, so do I, Karagan. And I just have to say that as a psychiatrist, it's a privilege for me to be able to engage in all of these ideas, because everybody that I treat has their own values and beliefs and come from different religious traditions. And that enriches my life. And I love being able to interact with you and others on these sort of topics, because it helps us actually get on together as people in the world.
Listen, this is our mission, right?
Yeah.
This is the idea to thrive together. I think humans can do it. They've done it, and we have examples of that. We just got to get past our differences and just join. And listen, maybe some people like, you guys are too. I don't know. What's the? I'm lost of. I'm losing words here, but like maybe it's too. I guess futuristic, to I guess fantasy like, to think that way. But the fact of the matter is, we can do this. I mean, and I don't know,
Idealistic, yeah. Yeah,
idealistic, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
it's that's the way.
right. That's right.
It's utopia thing, so it's
That's
not,
right.
it's not
That's right. But two things: if we can keep trust and respect, and that's not always easy, but if we can keep those two, then we've got a chance. We've got a chance.
Well, listen, we're gonna keep doing what we're doing. Hopefully, we'll get to the bottom of this and share with the world this wealth of potential knowledge that we can help each other. And certainly, I mean, listen, I mean, we have a couple of questions today that we've covered. I mean, we have a whole series that are coming up on the next one, but certainly all the stuff can apply to everybody that's watching and listening. It doesn't matter, to your point, what religion, what country, whatever. We've shared a lot of nuggets here from different angles, and while we're not political at the core, I am not a political show. This is definitely not one. It's about mental health, but when we talk mental, as you said, we have to touch on these things. 'Cause that's what applies to our life, and that's what impacts who we are and our emotions. Which was the first question we started with. Well, doctor, I mean, we're 9 minutes over, but we skipped last month. When we did skip last month, actually, we did. We did.
Oh, Hurricane, it's been a wonderful 9 minutes, don't you think?
It's been. I mean, again, I mean, it's not up to us to judge. I think let the people tell us how we did here. But guys, folks, if you're watching, or listening today, or anytime, please do check out the previous episodes. The playlist is still building in YouTube because we are rebuilding the whole channel there. So you'll have the full gamut there. But on the radio, all these shows are playing. We have two replay marathons that have every show from the inception of the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio, playing and replaying every month. Every 2 weeks, you're gonna hear some of the old shows, some of the new ones come up, and so on and so forth. So just catch on these things, and also do check out the Resilient Relationship show that comes up, with Dr. Heim and his partner, the other Dr. Heim. That's pretty, powerful shows as well. So again, it is the end of the show. You're watching Climb to Your Prime with Dr. Heim. I'm American Age, and we'll be seeing you guys at the end of the month. And thank you, doctor, for being with us.
Thank you, Hurricane.